come on. Hey, feel the rhythm. It's getting from the deepest of your soul. Now, use your senses, and everything will be easier than before. Keep on moving, funk is coming. Blind yourself, big. You'll become the star in this die. Spread your wings, fly to me. Funk is coming.
Listen, man, we are coming to the last part of the whole thing. Now I'm bringing to you the three questions that you sent me that you want me to ask you.
These are questions that you were going to ask me?
Yes.
I thought I was sending the questions I wanted you to answer.
No. No, I know.
I set myself up for this. Then.
Yes, I love this.
Holy no, oh my God.
Oh, listen, I've got emails. I mean, it's not my problem if you can't read. I got emails. So...
Okay, so just so the audience understands, anybody watching this, these were questions I thought were interesting for me to ask you. But yeah, let's go. That's fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, we can do it back and forth if you want.
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So we can keep it small and go back and forth.
I'm not scared of my questions. I'm equipped to answer my own questions.
Okay, no. Listen, let's do it back and forth. We just keep both of them really, simple answers, and let's see where we go from here. So the first question is, where does the freedom of speech begin and end? For instance, when it comes to fascists, and is violence ever justified in shutting someone up?
Yeah, like can you punch a Nazi type of thing. The reason why I find this, the reason why I asked you this, I mean, then I'll get into my own views on it. I'll have to think on my feet here. The reason I asked you this is because I've at times where I've wanted to kind of defend the freedom of speech and that good ideas should be used to beat down bad ideas, and that we shouldn't be afraid of that safe spaces effectively aren't a good idea, and that there should be debate about ideas. And where does that end? Because I agree, there's a point where I want to say there's a point where that ends, where you don't have to suffer somebody else's, like, because there's harm that needs to be avoided, or that there's this is going to go badly and we need to shut this up. Like this is not, the reason I asked is because anytime I wanted to talk about that, there were times where you spoke up where you're very persuasive in terms of your talk of fascism in Italy, right? And I know you have strong views, so I really wanted to kind of see whether your views have changed or how those have developed, or
I will. No, listen. It's a very short answer from my side. So it has layers. So the first layer is that I think that free speech in the U.S. is fucking overrated. It is overrated. And I can point to examples like even trivial examples like.
I think it's also completely misunderstood. I think
Evidence
think that once you get into the details, they're like, well, no, I don't. Well, no, that's not protected speech. And
right,
like, okay,
right.
Well,
and I mean, I'll just pick some trivial example. I mean, if people do not understand what I'm saying, please go to 8chan, which is not there anymore. Now it's 8Q, and read that shit that's on there. And then you tell me that free speech is a good thing. That's the first thing. The second layer is that, again, in the US, you never had a world war, and you never experienced fascism and Nazism.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my final question. I love to treat people in the conversation the way that they will treat me if their ideology was in place. That means that I do not speak with full-fledged fascists and full-fledged Nazi because I'm a kind person. And I realize that if they had their way, I would not be allowed to speak. So I'm just treating them the way that they would like to treat me if they were in power. That's it.
So what? Okay, man, I've got a lot. oh shit, I'm going to forget the thing that I wanted to. So before I forget the other thing I was going to talk.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what would you say? Then what do you do with those people? So that's my
I don't.
challenge to people. Like, so they're out there, right?
Mhm.
You're not engaging with them.
No, I don't speak with them.
Are you hoping that they die off? Are you hoping? Are you going to kill? Like, do we kill those people? Like,
No,
what
no,
do
no,
we do?
no.
So what about when these people, as these people start to become more prevalent?
Hmm.
Let's say they become, for instance, actually, let's take the U.S. with Trumpers, right?
Yeah.
So some 20 to 30% are this kind of like hardcore. Let's say 25% are this kind of Trump can do no wrong, because
Hmm.
honestly, like if at this point you don't repudiate the guy, you either are just in denial about the various various aspects of his person or his personality. I'm not talking about like
Right.
whether he's behind January 6th or anything like that. I'm just talking
Hmm.
about like his core person with the charges against him, with all of the things that and the lying and like it's really hard. Like it's gonna be like that shit happened, right? Like that
Yeah.
he's lying about a great deal. He lies all the time. He utters lies every other sentence. It's fine. Like there's Nancy Pelosi lies. There are other politicians who lie, but what I'd say is that like these people will defend him to no end. And they're friends of mine who go, I have blocked and kicked out any friend who I
Yeah.
just can't take seeing their feeds. I'm not going to argue with them
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Or they go at them like super hard. They're just like they're not interested in persuasion. They're just there to beat those people down, right?
Yeah.
So if we're not going to attempt to persuade these people, um, and let's say they're of 30% of the population or 25% of the population and have political impact, what are we hoping is going to happen in the U.S. with these people who are so taken by him? Are we hoping that they eventually die off? Are we hoping that or like because at some point you have like if you shut yourself off to these people, there's potential that continues to fester and grows, and it's and
Oh, they will.
yeah, and so
I
what do
mean,
you
at certain.
what do you do about that? So
Listen,
like
there is a physiological level of Nazi and fascist in every democracy. It's physiological. They will
sure,
always be there, and there is really nothing you can do. So the best you can hope is that you live in a country where there are some democratic processes and criteria that eventually they will shut them down to achieve position of power. That is something which should have happened in Europe in the 30s. It didn't happen, and there was the Kristallnacht. So we know what's going to happen. And that's why we have, some different libel laws, in Italy and France and Germany. I mean, there are some laws specifically against the Nazi Party apologetics or insignia or stuff like that. That doesn't mean that that statues are torn down. I mean, I live, there is a small town close to where I live where there is some beautiful fascist era monuments. And they actually been restored recently. That's it. I mean, that part of your culture. You got to deal with the culture. You know what I mean? So you got to be there. You got to face it. You got to remember, and you got to deal with it. So there are the democratic process which has to be put in place. Personally, again, I would say that shutting them down and not engaging with them, it is kind of a good thing, which helps keep their numbers down. I mean, as an example, I mean, you mentioned Trump recently, okay?
yeah, yeah.
So when Trump was president, it was all over the place because he was tweeting, he was talking stuff. I mean, ever since he's gone away, he has no tweet, he has no shit, and I might be wrong, but from the outside, I mean, the phenomena has gone down. I mean, really down. There is not that emphasis which there used to be right now in the U.S. about Trump. And that is because, if you don't talk about it, I mean, nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think I mean, he has there's like a truth or true, or I think there's actually a network or something like
Mm-hmm.
that he's kind of spun up. And I think he's he's still getting quoted and doing interviews on. I think if you watch Fox News,
right,
and you watch Tucker Carlson, you're going to see a lot of Trump talk, right? So he's still out there for
now,
sure.
I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying that we should not talk about fascism and Nazism.
Sure. Yeah.
It's the thing that if you have to engage with somebody, in my opinion, that is full behind the Nazi ideology. Mm-hmm. Again, out of the kindness of my heart, I am pretending that he's now in power, right? So, and if he's in power, I shouldn't be allowed to talk. So I'm just saying, okay, this is what's happening if you were in power instead of us. Mm-hmm. That's it. I'm not doing anything wrong because I'm actually applying your criteria. I mean, what you see, what you think, and that's it. I mean, you don't like it? Yeah, tough shit, man.
Yeah.
It's not my fault if you don't like the consequences of what you would like to be the society.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. So first, I think.
And sorry, before you go on, I mean, keep in mind that where I live specifically, there is a small village. I think it's an hour drive from here, and during the Nazi occupation, so the last year of the war, there was an episode happening there. So because some well, now we call them freedom fighters. I guess they were called terrorists at the time. So it swings and roundabouts. I think they attacked German convoy, stuff like that. The Wehrmacht and the SS went into that small village. They killed everybody. I think they killed something like 300 people. About 25 survived. Mostly kids, which run in the woods. And the stories were of German soldiers. Well, soldiers, not because
sure, yeah.
they were killing pregnant women. They were cutting their belly, taking out the babies, throwing it in the air, and shooting them like clay pigeon. I think this is where I draw the line. I killing, yeah, right.
I have no problem with. So violence against violence, right, is fine. I don't think any of us can really have any pushback that shooting such a person engaged in such an act is justified and warranted.
Right, but you see, when people say, what's going to happen if these people? We should let them speak because there must be a conversation. What could happen? Man, that happened.
Yeah.
And it's not something that happened like 60 years ago. Because if you go in Syria, that is what happened. Go to fucking Ukraine right now and see what the fuck happens right now.
Yeah.
This is the standard. It's not something which, it might happen. No. This will happen.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between unfriending and let me just say that people's social media is really their own business in terms of what types of conversations they want to have, what type of exposure. If you're unfriending people that you just can't, that you have an unpleasant day, I don't blame anybody for unfriending something that they don't want to see every day. It's fine. I'm not critiquing those people. But what I would say is that if we go around unfriending anyone who's a Trump supporter, let's say, mm-hmm. because they're posting constantly all this shit out there, there comes a point where that everybody's in their own echo chamber, and there's no actual progress, and you're either just you have to either be okay that you're just going to live with these people and they're going to be involved in your politics, and you're not going to talk to them, and you're just going to hope that your side wins, or you're going to hope they die off or something like that. Something has to let's say the Trump movement was really on fire, and the population's growing. You're eventually going to be looking at a Supreme Court you don't agree with. There's all these consequences. So what my suggestion would be that they don't unfriend people, that they actually have conversations and have those hard conversations. And because I myself was a fundamentalist pro-life Christian who took an egg in the back at a rally, at an anti-abortion rally. Not
Right.
that I don't want to get into talking about abortion, but like, what I would say is that like I changed my worldview radically. I went from being a fundamentalist Christian to being an atheist,
Right.
largely because of conversations I had that persuaded me I was wrong. Over a period of time, my views, like over a year, my views really changed, largely, and they were started off by having conversations that people thought they were wasting their time with me. They thought that that there's no way this guy's going to change his mind. Look at how much he's bought into this, and he's absurd. Like he goes to pro-life rallies and protests and stuff, right? There's no way that guy's going to change his mind, right? We say this all the time, but I'm somebody who changed my mind through a number of conversations with people where eventually I had a hard time making points. I was a little unsettled by it, and eventually and I think that what I would say is that like that small fraction of people who are very violent, who are spreading that violence by way of spreading the ideology, there may come a point where I agree. Yeah, we shut these people. Like these people. Number one is I don't think anybody's entitled to equal time. I don't think bad ideas deserve the soapbox.
Yeah.
But if they get the soapbox, I also don't know that it's a good idea to go up and punch them in the face.
Well, I mean, listen, man.
Is it okay to punch a Nazi? I don't think so. I think for what they're saying. Let me put it that way. It's okay to punch a Nazi for what they do. It's not okay to punch a Nazi necessarily for what they say. I don't think that's not the bar I want to have.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, there might be some objection, but but I mean, I can see the point. So here's the thing, first of all, I think if that is what happened to you, you are kind of I think in a minority. But I might be wrong.
Like that Noah Adam who I mentioned earlier today.
Right.
He had a YouTube channel with a huge following. He was like one of the dominant Christians on YouTube. Like he was putting out arguments. He was fighting the good fight for 6 or 7 years. Christians would would share his videos, right?
No, but
that guy is a big fan of Nietzsche now.
Listen, I'm trying to say something different.
Sure,
what I'm trying to say is that, okay, so first of all, I think that there are some people that you would never be able to convince them, regardless of whatever the fuck you tell them. So this is a waste of time, right? I think that it's because of everybody, in the world, we live with, we have two resources, it's time and material, and mostly time. So you got to decide, and you got to make up your mind, what is the most effective way in order for you to achieve your results. Talking single-handedly with every person, which might be a little bit on the fence, and I'm not saying you were on the fence, but, you obviously had, kind of doubts. There was something, rummaging in your head, in the head of yours. I think it is not economically effective. What I think is really effective is address people which are on the fringe of that movement. And those you address by rebutting the arguments of the more extreme people, which doesn't mean that you necessarily have to speak with those people, because they're really vocal in saying what they think. You don't really need to speak with them in order to know what they think. So you can address the same points without engaging them, because again, most of the times those people will beat you with a stick and you will not even realize that you've been beaten. It's like fighting with a pig, right? I
have no clue what it's like to fight with a pig.
Well, listen, fighting a pig, you might win, right? But you end up covered in shit anyway. So it's not a good thing. It's not super, economically viable. So what I would say is that, listen, if you have to do that, address the people which might change their idea. Because in the X amount of time, you might have a better result. And some other people might follow, because then it's a chain, because if you pull up somebody which is a little bit on the border, the border moves. And so there is another person on the board that guy changing his mind and say, okay, there might be something. So, but you got to work. I mean, when you eat a cake, you eat it, from the side. You don't dig it in the center and you eat it. It doesn't work. You make a mess out of it.
If the intention is to share the cake with others, yeah. I mean, but
Yeah.
if,
Well,
but,
it
it was just for me, you know what? The next time I have cake that's just for me,
yeah.
I'm going right to the center just to see how that goes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you do that. You do that. And again, you will realize it's not the most effective way to eat a bloody cake.
I don't know. I can't say it till I try it.
Yeah, but please be my guest. You're gonna film it.
You know, this issue. The reason I asked is this is a really hard issue, right? Like I think everybody can agree that like the guy who yells fire in a crowded theater for out of malicious intent is and puts lives at risk should be prosecuted. Like I think freedom of speech definitely has a limit. But I would say is that I think in terms of like honestly, if you talked to me, I would not have been somebody that you thought were going to persuade. The same way that I argue for atheism, I argue for Christianity. Like a lot of people have said, I'd like to see this version of you argue with the old version of you. Right? It would be an interesting conversation. I had reasons that I had bolstered up. They were shitty reasons, and eventually that's the reason why I left. Is that like my reasoning was not good.
Right.
But it took people kind of wearing that down before I went from being a hardcore fundamentalist who you're absolutely wrong, and I can give you all the reasons all day long as to why you're wrong, Fabio, to being somebody who actually agreed with you on your conclusions. And it was through. And it wasn't even I told these people years later that those were the conversations. They didn't know at the time, right? And so I think the biggest thing that you have to, and I think this is why their arguments worked, is it was people who I knew who were personally invested in me, who made good points, who I respected, and that's why I try to have sincere conversations with somebody like Trey Jadlow, right? Like I'll tell him when he's being a dick, but I understand the reasons why he believes the things he believes.
Well, because you relate to him.
I relate to him, and I want to be persuasive to him. Like I want him, and the way, and it doesn't mean that you have to eat shit from somebody else, but it means that you do have to treat them as if you were them with good reasons to think what they were thinking and giving them, and wanting. I would want people to persuade me out of those ideas. Like they're not good for those people either.
Listen. I think we are crossing the streams here. Like in Ghostbusters.
Because I think you'll agree with me on some of that.
No,
stuff.
Listen. I agree with you that Okay, so what I'm saying, well, first of all, it's me personally. It doesn't mean to be, in general. But I also realize, because of what we said before, that personal experience are important. So it really, I guess that my answer should be, it really depends.
Yeah.
But it really depends. I don't think it conveys the same amount of what I really want to say. I am way more scared about persons denying that the Holocaust ever existed, rather than people which march on the road with Nazi insignia. And the reason is because
you said you're more concerned about the people who deny the Holocaust than
because and the main reason is because there is a generation which has died that they remember what happened, and they could say no, listen, I came from that place. So you're full of shit. Now these people, they don't exist anymore. So it's something that they say, and I can say something back, but it's words against words. You miss the testimony, you miss the the thing. It's like the flat Earth. Do you really want to talk with somebody who says the Earth is flat? Fuck no, I don't want to. I don't want to. But I realize that there might be somebody, if asked, say, well, what do you think about the flat Earth? Well, it's full of shit. It's obviously round because of these three reasons, and that's it.
Yeah. The reason I can ignore people with the flat Earth is that there's nothing that falls out of that. Go ahead and believe that all you want. Like it's not going to doesn't impact me at all, right? Like there's no political.
You go from the flat Earth to the conspiracy to the vaccines and all that shit and 5G. It's a slippery slope,
Their poor reasoning or their ability to kind of latch onto conspiracies is an issue for sure. like other conspiracies they may believe, but like the flat Earth per se. But you're right. There are typically other things they don't believe. People won't believe in the flat Earth because if they give that credence, number one is that they want to believe the Bible, or they want to believe like the four corners or whatever reason is, it bolsters their other beliefs.
I have no idea. I don't speak with them, so I don't know why they believe that. So see.
Well, let's take a different example. Is that like global warming, right? Like there's a lot of Christians in the U.S. who will not believe in global warming,
right,
or climate change. The reason is because that same science is what it allows, like their same rejection of science is common to their rejection of an old Earth, right? Like
okay,
they want to believe in a young Earth.
That is a fantastic example. They
have other beliefs that make it such that they can't say, well, no, the scientists are right about climate change, but they're wrong about the date of the Earth. No, it has to be that they have skepticism of scientists generally, right? Like I'm going to reject the scientific enterprise because they are misunderstanding the world. The Bible has it right. They have it wrong. So I can't believe in climate change. It gets into that historical science crap, right?
That is a brilliant example. But let me tell you my take on that. What I do is try not to have those people elected. And in order for me not to have these people elected, I don't speak with them and change their mind. I speak with the people that eventually cast a vote. So, and here's the same thing. I mean, that should apply.
Well, ironically, I actually think that most politicians probably, like a lot of politicians are highly educated. Like you take Ron DeSantis in Florida, a guy who graduated from Harvard, right? But he's the governor of Florida, makes asinine comments all the time. And the only reason he makes asinine comments is because there are a bunch of asses who will vote for him because they resonate with those views, right? He's simply, and oddly enough, I think if you had your way of actually persuading the people who vote for those people, I think those people would actually just change their view because they actually don't believe that climate change isn't real. It's that it's politically convenient.
They are opportunists. That's it, But
exactly.
but it's the same thing, with the fascist and Nazi movements, all over. It is way more effective not to try to make them elected by talking with people which cast a vote, rather than try to change the mind of somebody which proposed himself for a seat in the Senate or whatever, because this guy is already out there. Yeah. It's a waste of time. I mean, do you really think that I can talk that guy into saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to renounce my political career because, fascism is wrong. I mean, that is never going to happen.
Yeah.
So ostracize them, yes. And then eventually, when they are, in a reserve where I would love them to be, like, in a nice island where, all the boats are I can go there and have a conversation with them, but just that matter, because that is the garnish on the dish.
Sure. Yeah,
you first cook a nice dish and then you put a nice garnish in it. But if the garnish is not there, fuck it. Then I still have the privilege of eating the democracy the way it's supposed to be eaten.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is that this does go back to our, like what we were talking about like half hour ago of Christianity in America going away, and the pushback on there will be a tipping point where you have climate change deniers are people who will also believe in a young Earth. And it's part of their Christian kind of core beliefs, that science skepticism, like homeschooling, a skepticism of academics, skepticism of experts, all of that shit is so that they can have justified beliefs that the Bible is right and that the whole scientific enterprise is wrong about the nature of the Earth, the nature of reality, the age of the universe, the origins, all of that stuff. That all has to be bogus. So climate change has to go out the window with it, as does evolution, anything else, right? They need to reject the whole enterprise. Mm-hmm. But what you're seeing like it's making it such that kids that are growing up that are educated can't become these fundamentalist Christians because they believe no, climate change is obvious, right? Like that's part of the reason why Christianity is going to be left behind as a fundamentalist Christianity, evangelical Christianity in the U.S. it is going to continue to decline. It's going to continue to thrash, and it's going to continue to try to pass, extreme pro-life laws. It's going to push prayer into school. It's going to continue to try to push things into it because it's in its death throes. I think the next 20 to 30 years, you're going to see quite a change, and it's going to be that even the generation of homeschool kids that they've tried to insulate it's like, because of the internet and whatnot, they're going to change their views. The parents are going to be out of accord with their kids' views, and this trend is going to kind of continue. And I don't remember where I was going with all of that,
I mean, we're talking about going face to face with people instead of trying to change things in a more organized way, and I agree with you. And so let me give you two small examples from the country I live in. We have the bloody Vatican here, right? I mean, you can get more Catholic than that. We actually host the Vatican here. It's 3 hours drive from my house. They're there.
Shame on you.
Well, I mean, they're there. Actually, St. Peter is fucking gorgeous. It's beautiful.
I am going to get over there someday, and you and I are going to have a drink or something.
The last person I brought him in was Scientist Sam, which is a Jew.
Oh yeah.
Which is a Jew. He walked in there and said, "I am fucking blown away. This is insane."
Oh, did you go down with him, or he went in and reported back to you what he experienced?
No. I went with him.
Go with him? Oh,
Yeah. Because I want to have the face, his image in my mind. He said, listen, I've been to Jerusalem. The big.
I really like that guy.
This is fucking insane. I mean, and listen. You go in the Vatican. You put yourself in the shoes of a 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 person, poor person coming from the country. You walk in the Vatican. You totally understand why they converted. It's beyond. It's really built for that. It's insane. But I was telling you, we have the Vatican here, so you can't have a more Catholic nation in the world. I think in the late 50s, I think, or 60s, we passed, with a referendum, we passed a law on divorce. And later on, again, with a referendum, we passed a law on abortion. So, and the church fought. They fought hard. And I mean, really hard. You can do those things if you have good arguments, if you know how to speak to people, if you speak to them, they will change their mind, even in an environment which is totally hostile. So that can happen. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty optimistic view, and I think that people generally will. I don't know how strongly I want to say this. I think generally people would do good because I think that behaving well has other benefits, and I think generally people want to have, kind of pleasant interactions, pleasant life. I think. So I think generally it's going to be hard to have a whole nation adopt those views. It's going to be more like, if you look at Russia with Putin and his, anything that he's doing isn't necessarily reflective on the population. It's that the population's capitulating because of the crackdowns that would occur if they were to push back or whatever, right? So I don't think you'll have like a mass of people who deny the Holocaust or something like that. I think you potentially have people who come into power and, I don't know, maybe.
No, but it is what hinges on that, which is problematic. 20 years ago in Europe, there was quite a big black wave going on, in Greece, in France, with Le Pen, in Greece with the Golden Dawn. Germany kept it, subsidized, but there was some stuff like that. In Italy, we were lucky because we had a really populist movement called the Five Stars, so that never happened. Because, mostly what happened, it wasn't that like a resurgence of the Nazi in Europe. It was the coming of the populist movement in Europe, which is something that you later experienced with Trump. I mean, those guys are not Nazis; they're populists. But that has gone away, It has gone away because, at first, your first reaction is to fight these people, with all your heart, and you go there and you scream in their face. Okay, that's one way to do it. I don't think it's working, but it is one way to do it. The other way to do it is to be calm and trust the process and see, okay, they will get 15%, 10%, see what the fuck happens, and see how it goes. Because as we said before, at the end of the day, they elect politicians, and politicians are opportunists. Once that wave is subsidized, they will change their mind. I mean, those are not the problem. The problem is the people which vote them. So, yeah.
And for what it's worth, I don't. I have a couple of friends who are pretty irrational of their support for Trump. I have other ones who it's just because there's not a better alternative, and that is a problem, to be honest. I think there's been a lot of holding your nose when you vote for alternatives because it's.
No, but listen, man, I totally understand you, and again, I just want to refer to what I said at the beginning. The three layers I said before. You never had a world war. That is a problem.
That was an interesting point. That's actually the point I forgot. Is that I was talking about my friends who grew up in East Germany.
Yeah.
Another thing he said to me was that he goes, in America, you've never had that experience of having your entire government shift from one form to another.
Yeah.
He goes, that really messes with your notion of permanence. Or like, I think in Americans' minds, they can't fathom, the United States as it is going away, right? Or changing radically like that. He said that his experience of East Germany, basically of the wall coming down and the government changing, really just changed his view on the world. It really made it so that these things, you have to fight for them, you have to defend them because there's no guarantee of permanence there. There's no God ordained
no.
This, this is the perfect institution that will last all time or whatever, right?
The biggest problem is that, again, and it's nobody's fault. It's just different history, different culture, different things. What I want people to understand is that the reason we have this kind of libel laws in Europe is not because the Nazis or the fascists got in power. That is not the reason. It's because once they are in power, all the good people, they follow them. In Germany, there was a movement. Actually, it was an operation. It was called Action Tiergartenstraße 4. Action T4, okay? And you can check it out. That was way before they started putting the Jews and the gypsies in concentration camps. So basically what it was the fact that it was an economical point of view. If you have a disabled kid, somebody which had problems or severely autistic or stuff like that, the state told you, listen, you can bring those kids in our hospitals and facilities and stuff like that. We will take care of them, right? Because it's a problem. The whole reason behind that was the fact that somebody in the government, they made some calculation and they figure out how much money it would cost to raise a problematic kid. And they said, you know what? With the money that we spend, in providing support and stuff like that, we can give half that money to a young couple that can have good kids for the country and stuff like that. So what happened is that families gave their kids to these hospitals and all these places, and the kids were killed and burned. This is actually where they tested, the method that they were later employed in Auschwitz, Dachau, and all those places. Now here's the kicker. It wasn't the army or the police which went in those houses and took those kids. The family gave the kids away.
Right. Yeah.
And those and it is impossible that all those families, they were all Nazi. There were good persons, people like you and me, but because this is the government tells you to do that, it's a good thing, you see the result, and you believe it, you just give away your kids because you think it's a good thing. And even when later on everybody just smelled that it was something, fishy, they keep giving away their retarded kids. So this is the reason why we have those kind of laws. It's not because we are afraid to get in power. It's because once they are in power, there is no innocent people. Dachau, it's really close to a small village, north to Munich, and I can guarantee. I mean, I live. There is an oil, like vegetable oil, olive oil plant not far from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And when the wind shifts, there is kind of a bad smell coming, right? I can guarantee you that those people living close to that concentration camp, they could smell it. So, and they were all good persons. None of them was in the Wehrmacht. I mean, they were living a good life. I mean, blonde people, living their life with German shepherds and all that shit.
Yep.
It changes you because it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the man.
There was something that actually. This is, and I'll just say it and then I'll caveat afterward. Again, talking about the German couple that I was chatting with, or that they're very close friends with us, and they. What was interesting to me was that he had been in Berlin, stationed in Berlin. Yeah. He was actually part of the military, and he was stationed in Berlin when the wall came down, and saw things and had very different thoughts about East Germany than his wife, who lived out in the country, had a great upbringing, had respect for her civic leaders, saw them as good people trying to do good things, and even to this day has a, I think she had a good experience. And when everything changed, it wasn't that she was seeing the things that, I think she wasn't naive or anything. She's not naive, but I think there's a desire to have a, you want to believe that those people were and those people were well-intentioned.
Right.
They were good people trying to do good under that system. And we're not like thinking, I'm just waiting for the wall to come down. Like they believed that was the form of government they should have, and that they should, and that, and didn't have, it was interesting to talk to them and have very different perspectives on what went down in the 80s and whether the situation had to change or whatever.
And the funny thing is that I'm super positive that both your friends, one which was living in East Germany and the other one, they had one thing in common. They despised the Nazi regime which was there before.
Oh yeah. So even to the point where when we're talking about the Stasi and we're talking about the SS, very quick to point out, well, the Stasi was nothing like the SS.
Exactly.
Exactly. Almost not apologizing for the Stasi, but very, very defensive to not have that be an equivalency.
Yes, whatever, because they thought that we're living as you said, in a system which was basically protecting from what happened.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the Stasi were not the SS. The SS
no.
Fucking horrible, but the Stasi were fucking horrible as well.
Yeah. I mean, fuck them. No, you're right. I mean, but, and again, they both knew because, it was very close in the years, so that people remembering. And also because, especially if you live in East Germany, you had constant reminders of the wall.
Yeah.
Because I've been to Berlin the year after the wall collapsed. And the thing which blew my mind was, walking from West Berlin to East Berlin, where the buildings, they still had the holes of the bullets from World War II. I've been to Dresden. Yep. Dresden is the city which was carpet bombed by the Americans with fire bombs.
I was there in 2015. Like the rebuilding is gorgeous, but
the tarmac was boiling. That was how much it was. And so you've been there. You remember these I don't remember if it's the theater or stuff, or there's this big monument which I don't know if now they did something to that. When I went there, it was black as tar. and that because of the heat of the. So I mean, you live there and you say, you know what? Yeah, Nazi kind of bad. You know, because look at that.
Well, that was I was talking about those civic programs that they had, and actually what he said was that he would meet with the town elders, and it was to instruct the youth as they were growing up on just how bad the Nazis were, right? Like, it was an East German civic program to reject that past, which is proper. Like, they should have rejected it. Ironically, what they had was certainly not as bad. East Germany was not Hitler's Germany, right?
No.
But was not great.
No. Yeah.
And it's not that they'll ever defend it as great. I don't want to be uncharitable, my friends. They would, but it was that there's. But you're right. There's no one who hates the Nazis as much as the East Germans did. Like, they really rejected that past, for sure. Did you want to go to our next?
Yeah. Let's do, because they're really fast. I mean, the second one is, what is your favorite use of your time? So you go first, really quick. And then, I mean, because me, it's really fast. I can tell you mine. It's really easy.
I'll go through a couple. I guess I really enjoy spending time with my kids, obviously, especially as they're grown. I just don't see them frequently enough. It's certainly better than when I was in Toronto for the last 3.5 years. I'm really relieved to be close. But man, I wish I could see them every weekend. It's just not. Number one is they don't want me in their life that frequently.
Yeah.
And they and you know I
Boomer. They don't want you. Boomer.
Yeah. So there's that. I have a dog, Ernie, now. So I don't know if you know Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street.
Yes.
It's hit and miss with foreigners as to whether they get the reference or not. But Ernie's fantastic. He's been huge. He's basically got me through that last year in Toronto for sure. And then, just in terms of like, even with COVID depression and other shit like that, like, just dogs are fucking phenomenal. Like, I love having a dog. And then actually my next passion now that I'm getting into is VR, actually, and doing content for VR and building some really. I'm not so much into VR gaming, but in terms of creating experiences, as you know, I'm a visual effects artist, right? So I can build some pretty complex, crazy things, and I enjoy like creating experiences, and that's kind of where I want to use my time.
I have an HTC set, the old one. So if you do something, just if you have something, just send it to me. As far as goes for me, I agree with you with the dogs. I love to spend time with Argo and Masha, my two dogs. One is a German Shepherd, the other one is who the fuck knows what it is. And the other thing is riding my motorcycle at really unsafe speeds.
Don't kill yourself, man.
I try not to, but as long as it goes, it gives me like that kick that
I think I would enjoy a motorcycle quite a bit. I've held back for years, and I don't think I'll get one, but certainly it's attractive. I definitely. I read Zen when I was a freshman in college. I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Of
and it
course
just gave me a super romantic notion about the self-care for motorcycles, like basically like the maintenance and the but I mean that's a much bigger book, and it's
I mean,
it
has
paints
been
this,
a great influence to everybody. So yeah,
paints this really romantic notion. Yeah, there's that the Partially Examined Life. There's like a podcast, Partially Examined Life, and they did a whole section. It's a very popular podcast. It's like a kind of philosophy podcast, probably the most popular philosophy podcast out there. And one of their shows, they did Art in the Motorcycle Maintenance, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. They did a whole kind of thing on I think Pershing and his whole background and everything. And it was super fascinating. Got into talk. I think they had actually talked to him. It was before he died. I think he died a number of years ago. But it was before that, and they had some access to him. And he had a lot of like mental issues and strife with the world. And it was interesting. He gave me that context of like that book came out of like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
About like the modernization of the U.S. and the building of highways and and court, this industrial complex and everything, and its impact on the environment. And all of a sudden, that book started making a whole lot more sense when you have that context of how the world was in the late 70s.
No, but it is true. I mean, there's been a shift in motorcycle. Well, the last 15 years. I mean, they used to be way more accessible. You could do a lot more of the maintenance yourself. The one I have, which is a fantastic bike. I mean, I love it to bits. I mean, actually, there's a funny story behind that. I will tell you because it's an MV, Brutale 675, and. But now they become too. I mean, you can only do so many things because fuel injection and all that shit. It just some things has to be serviced. But still, I mean, you can do some things. And I love that bike to bits. It's razor sharp. It's a bloody scalpel, and it was a dream of mine to own a bike because I knew the guy which made the bike, Massimo Tamburini, which is like
Wow.
if you're. I mean, if you are a wood carpenter, it's like knowing Geppetto. You know what I mean? Or Saint John. It's like the god. And I met the guy, and that was the last bike that he actually made. Before he died, I actually made another one, but that never happened. But so I love the fact that there's something from him because it reminds me of the guy, and that guy is just, and the bike is fucking amazing. I love it. Third question.
Yes.
What is your belief about God, and what is your best reason for thinking it to be the case? Now, you answer first, and then I go.
Well, yeah, I'll try to make this brief, but I'm going to make it a bit more of a complex answer. So I'm not currently persuaded that a God exists, and when I say that, I generally think of it as like at least something with some intention to create, and that did create, like has some creative capacity. So like we get down to like the most like rarefied version with like the least number of attributes, that at the very least, I think people who would want to say a God does something, I think they would want to say that it has intentions and that it created based on those intentions. Like at the very least, like let's I don't know any other like Christian, like talking about Trey Jadlow's version of God or anything, or all these other versions of God. At least that little thing I want. At the very least, I'll say that's your concept. And if you're asking me if I believe in that, I would say no. The reason I would say no, well, I don't. I believe I have intentions, and I believe I have the ability to kind of conceive and think about the world, and I think I have a good story for how I developed those capacities. I trace that back through evolution and how senses formed and how nervous systems formed and how they came about and what their function is. There's a purpose behind all these things. And so when you want to talk about Bert and Bert's ability to think and conceive of the world and whatnot, there's a reason why I have all these attributes. So then to say that a God has some of these qualities like intentions or has the ability to act to create, that to me, there's no, I don't know what a God is doing with those properties. It seems to me wildly unrealistic to say that I have to go through this. There's this whole causal line of evolution and of development of life on Earth that resulted in me today now talking to you over video conference, expressing words and intentions to you and setting up expectations in you, and you responding in kind, like seeing my intentions and you setting up expectations in me. We have this communication that goes back and forth. And I feel like I have this whole account I can give as to why today I'm doing this with you today and why we have these properties and these things.
Right.
I don't know how a God would just happen to have those things. That seems super coincidental, or that God would create a world where there's this big story, this big account of how life began and how the earth formed and all this stuff, just to get to a point where Bert could have the same properties as a god? Why not just create these beings with these properties or whatever?
Right.
Like, I don't have an account for a god, and gods, in theory, don't have accounts because they just are brute facts. They're just out there. But what you're trying to tell me is that it has all these properties of something that does have an account, that does have like this causal history that explains it, and it just happens to be the same. It just seems super weird to me. I don't buy it. I don't buy, and so I'd say that that's probably like underlying everything. That's something that's just seems far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
But I could be persuaded by someone who wants to give me reasons. I could be persuaded to believe that a God exists, but I have yet to experience someone who I think is in a good position to say that they have those reasons. I have better explanations for what it is they think happened. The car crash that resulted in this transcendent experience or something. I think I have a better explanation for that than that there's some God out there who happens to share all these properties with me that I happen to come to this point in my life, this whole causal chain of evolution. And then we happen to have these properties, and then he's speaking to me through this event or whatever.
I understand. I mean, it's a pretty simple.
It's a weird thing.
No, I mean, it's a pretty simple economic concept of the maximum result with the minimum effort. I mean, you can explain the maximum result with the minimum effort. That's what you should aim for. It's.
I also don't think it's a very satisfying explanation. You're going to tell me that well, no, there's just this thing out there that does all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
You just. No, but that's my explanation to you. Well, what kind of explanation is that? You're just telling me that there's this thing that just does it. Doesn't. Well, why does it do it?
You need to set in place a series of scaffolding, which is, raising something which, I mean, really? Come on.
That's an argument that I wouldn't tend to make to a Christian or something, because I think they have personal experiences and other stuff like that. So then I'll get into if I'm arguing with a Christian, I'm going to look at okay, well, what are you telling me I need to rely on? I need to rely on the Bible. Well, let's see if the Bible's reliable, right? And we'll go through the Bible and I'll talk through all the reasons why I don't think it's reliable. And eventually they'll just want to push those things aside, and then they'll say, but I have these personal experiences. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
You have those personal experiences. I thought I had those personal experiences, but then I realized that I was actually had bad explanations for them, and that's not actually what happened.
Right.
And
that would be a Christian, in your on your side of the pond, because obviously if you speak with a Catholic or a Jesuit, stuff like that, the approach has to be different, because the Bible is there, but then there's the doctrine, so it gets messy really easy.
The reason, the explanation I gave you is why I would refute even the bare minimum concept. I think that even with the bare minimum concept there are problems.
Yeah.
But then if you're going to give me a more specific case, there's easier ways to argue against that. And there's more persuasive things.
No, but I understand. As far as goes for me, so I'm that kind of asshole that when that question is presented. So I believe that in order for you to be an atheist or a theist, you're going to be presented with a claim. So my first reaction would be, okay, what God are you talking about? First of all, but I'll follow up your argument. So. But I do it, the other way around. If we intend the Christian God, I was a Catholic for many years. My biggest problem right now, it's basically two problems. The first one is that, the God which is described by, and that is kind of goes across the board of all the Christians. It looks suspiciously as a man, which has a lot of power. So that doesn't smell right to me. First of all, he has this, actually he's jealous, he wants to be loved. Yeah, really? I mean, like my uncle does. I mean, he's the same. He's so
your uncle sounds like a dick.
Why? Yeah, I mean, why? I mean, why the God you described to me? It resembles so much everybody I know. That is something which doesn't ring true. And also the other big thing is the problem of evil. That is a big stopper for me. I
think
it's a huge one. If we're talking about the Christian God, and but if we're talking about something a little bit more generic, as you said before, somebody with intention and creation, that too, I would say that my two biggest problems would be, yeah, okay. The fact that you got to have intention, you got to be a mind. I have no fucking idea what you mean by a mind, which maybe you mean that it kind of disembodied in some way, shape, or form. I can't. I mean, I have nothing to attach to that concept because it is beyond my. I do not understand that. So I understand the words, but it's really difficult for me to actually, put that in kind of a box or define that. Like the general shape is problematic. There is also the fact that if he has intention, you have the problem of time. And if created time, what the fuck did he live in before? So that is kind of an issue. But
I think with an eternal God who is unchanging, who then acts to bring about things that entails change in them. Why did they there's? Yeah. And I think actually a God acting out of time, like that it's timeless, but then acts and so did it have an antecedent purpose?
Right. I mean, even the
why
thought.
Did it act then and not sooner? There was no sooner. Well, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, but I mean, if it's timeless, how do you measure the thought? The thought process. It does. I mean, again, you tell me, I understand the words, but I cannot, I cannot even put a shape around it. And also, there is the minor fact that with a generic God like that, I guess that my question would be, okay, listen, I'll give you all of that, right? Fuck it. I don't.
Sure.
Get it. You're right.
Grant all that. Yep.
Yeah. I got one question. Does it require worship? Because if he doesn't, okay, I can believe the guy. Yeah, fuck the guy. I mean,
what I would say is
but if he does require worship, okay, now please, I'm sitting down, I got all the time in the world, I've got plenty of fluids, now you got to explain to me why that thing requires worship from me, because now it gets suspiciously close to my uncle, the one who told me.
I think a couple thoughts on that stuff. So first, I think it's a God who acts like there's a reason that I act. I act to do things like I have a prior state that isn't satisfied in some way, and so I'm acting to actualize something, right? Like I'm needing something, right? Like anytime I'm acting, I'm needing something. Yeah. At a very base level, and maybe you may argue that you didn't need to do that. Well, the reason I acted is because I had a desire, I had an intention to do something that wasn't the case, right? Yeah. Or actualize something that wasn't the case. But you're talking about a God who is the totality of creation, who is perfect, who is complete, who is all these things. What is an act for? What is it needing? And they could say, well, no, God doesn't need anything. Well, what the fuck's he doing? What are you talking about? There are reasons that we act, and there's a reason I have a mind. What is a God doing with a mind? I don't know. I don't have a good reason why a God happens to have a mind. Well, he just happens to have it. Yeah. Well, fuck that. Anybody can do that. And this thing happens to have that.
Yeah, but even if he does, we're going to
take this thing that we can't explain through. So now on the other side, I think atheists who are physicalists or naturalists I think they overstep their burden because they'll talk about they don't have a good explanation for the mind, and to just say that it's just matter. It's just, you're not capturing the phenomena. There is something weird there going on, right? Yeah. The mental is strange. I think it's all part of the same substrate because dualism doesn't make any sense to me. So I think I'm a monist in terms of the substrate. But I think that there's complexities there that I don't have the tools to understand. There's clearly a quality of experience that is not summed up by me giving you the quantity of the molecules in my brain or something or the physical explanation or the physical description misses part of the phenomenon.
No, you're right.
I don't have a good, and atheists all the time overstep their fucking warrant. They're what is warranted to believe in order to defend against spiritualism or defend against idealism or mentalist notions or whatever. I don't want to go the other direction where I have this knee jerk to say that I think it's this way. I don't have. I think I've learned to say that that the universe is, or that all of reality is one substrate at the root level. I think that makes sense. I don't know how dualism works, like where there's two substrates. So I'm a monist, but I don't have, I can't say that it's all what like can be physically explained without additional, like there's a layer to reality that I may not be apprehending.
No,
that does explain these things.
I understand you, and I remember we had a conversation many years ago. When I told you I was a Catholic, and you asked me if I really believe in the Trinity, and I said, yeah, of course I did. What I mean, and you were laughing, and I said, I mean, what the fuck this guy is laughing for? I mean, of course you do, but again. I understand why you were laughing, but I will say that about what I said before, even if I cannot grasp the concept of mind in the way that is described like that, I know that there's some God concept that the only way that you have to believe in them is believing in them.
Yeah.
So it's either a revelation or stuff like that. And with those gods, I am super fine. Because I do not have to give you shit because I don't believe in them. Because now it's their problem to make them believe in me. And I understand they can do that. I'm just here waiting, that's not an issue.
È pronto.
See? It's ready.
Are you wrapping up?
Yeah.
Hi.
The boss is coming. See?
Now, let me just say one thing. Can I just say one thing on that?
Yeah.
Like with respect to the Trinity, don't tell me that you understand. Like don't expect it to give me this contradict. Like what I'm saying is that for Christians, don't lay out this contradiction and then tell me that it makes sense. If you want to say, yeah, it's a contradiction, I don't understand it, great. Yeah. We agree. It's a contradiction and you don't understand it. I also don't understand it. And if you want to say that the Bible lays it out in this way, and I can't justify it, but I'm going to believe it because of other beliefs I have.
Exactly.
That's fine. But don't expect me to like go to say it to me and for it to make sense to me.
No, but
you're uttering a contradiction. You're saying something is 3 and 1 at the same time. That's a contradiction.
This is the part we're talking about. It's when you are on that train, you ride that train and you get all the train. And there are some things you believe in it, even if you cannot give a proper explanation. And I understand that can happen. I'll go on and say that happens more commonly that we think. In everyday life. I mean, we believe in shit that we shouldn't really believe in it, but we just cling to it because reasons, and that's okay. If you want me to make a really trivial example, I mean, I do not understand why my wife, she is not the most. Everybody doesn't think that she's the most beautiful woman in the world. Because to me, she is, I mean, I can see there are people that are way better looking, but still there is something which makes... And the fact that I believe that, it doesn't entail me to actually go at you and say, I mean, why don't you believe that? I mean, can't you fucking see? It is so obvious for me. So I get that. Yeah. My problem is that once you stop believing that, for the same reason that you believe in that, for reasons, that's it. I mean, this is as much as you can do. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So, I think what I want to say is that, Trey Jadlow used to say, well, no, we need to speak of God in a logical language, through analogy. Yeah. Because we can't refer properly to God, and that's fine. I understand what he's saying. What he's saying is that we can only refer to the Trinity in terms of analogies because we can't understand the whole thing. Right. But analogies require a shared common thing, and if you're going to tell me there's no shared common thing, then what is the analogy? What's the analogous part? What's the part that? What is the part? When I say my bed, I think I used this example with him. I said my bed comforter is red like an apple. Yeah. Or not red like an apple. My comforter is like an apple.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, you're going to see my comforter's red. You're going to go, oh yeah, it's red like an apple is red.
Right.
It has a shared property there.
Yes.
It's not like an apple in all the other ways, but it's like an apple when it's, in the fact that it's red.
Yeah.
When you're going to tell me that God is, is like this.
Yeah.
But then you're going to like slither or squirm out of any, like, as I try to nail down what's the property you're picking out there, and let's see if God's like that. That's my problem, is that then it gets like,
no, but you see,
we can't talk about it. Well, you're wanting to say something about your God. So if you're going to say something about him, I can say something about him too.
Right.
And if you're going to tell me that no, we can't talk about that. Well, you can't tell me the Trinity is a thing if you don't understand what it is you're saying.
This is part of what we were talking about before, about the dryness of the conversation, how dry it can be. Because this is a perfectly legitimate conversation.
Am I boring you right now? Is that
No. The dryness means that it goes nowhere. Because this is a perfectly, I think, legitimate conversation between someone who believe and someone who doesn't, that they want to have an honest conversation and they're willing to accept that personal experience is something important, at least for the other person. Now you can have a conversation. The moment that one of them, they try to translate something that they feel, that they have no common ground in an objective fact to win the argument, this is where it all crumbles. Because nobody's going to concede, naturally enough. And it's not because one is a piece of shit that doesn't want to concede, it's because I can't relate to what the hell you're saying. You're trying to explain to me in terms that you think make sense to me, but you're missing the part where it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I can tell you yes, and at the end you tell me, oh, so now you're convinced. Fuck no. Cause
do we have time for one more little question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What and you can ask this back to me, is what would it take you for you to believe in God? What would be the thing that would have to happen for you to go, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm persuaded that a God exists. Is there anything? Because it's a lot of atheists, you talk to them and they go, yeah, there's nothing. And then you're like, well, fuck, dude, then, you're not skeptical enough for your own views.
Listen, so part of me will want to give you the shitty answer. The one that says, it's not my problem. God knows what it takes for me to believe in it.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So, which is not a bad answer.
It's not a bad answer. I understand this kind of
Paul's really in God's court.
Yeah, but on the other hand, even the most honest answer, it's kind of a thing. It's kind of a scapegoat, because I'm willing to concede that there might be something which would make me believe in God. So there might be some kind of personal experience which will make me believe in God. What is that experience? I have no idea. I don't know. It might be something as simple, as, I don't know, going for a walk and, because, sometimes I would not be shy, There are moments right now, maybe, for 2 or 3 minutes where I actually believe in God. And then I say, okay, fuck, that was. But in that moment, I would, because I'm in a particular mood. I've seen, things, some beautiful, and I just, go and say, yeah, that makes sense. And then I think, no, it really doesn't. So
when I was a Christian, I believed that God had spoken to me at one point and had given me a private name. And what I've said, and there's one individual on the earth who knows that name. I think they've actually forgotten that they know that name.
Yeah.
And there's no one else. And it's not a proper name. It's not a word that you would just pull out of a hat.
Uh-huh.
And I've said to people, if you can fashion me with that name, I'll believe the Christian God spoke to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, it may be the case that, people, atheists are floored when I say this. They're like, what about other explanations? I said, look, if I'm talking to a Christian, and I tell them, if your Christian God is real, the God that you worship is real, you'd be able, this God should be able to furnish you with this name that even if God didn't utter, let's say I was mistaken, God knows though that I had that experience, right? In theory, God knows, even if I was mistaken that God said that, if God's all-knowing, he knows that I think that I had that experience. He should be able to give you the name. And if you give me the name back, God, that is. I don't know how else you get it. And I could say, somebody could say, well, alien technology or something. Look, I don't have evidence to believe aliens, but I'm talking to a Christian who I presented this challenge to, who's now saying it to me. If it happens to be an alien fooling me, fine. Like, I'm going to go down this course. But I think I'd be warranted in believing that had happened, that they had gotten that name from their God.
Yeah.
Or a God. It may be a God, whatever. But, like, I'm talking to a Christian. I was a Christian at the time. I'm going to, maybe it's a God fucking with me, but that could be the case anyway. So I think I could find warrant there to go, wow, that's a miraculous thing. It's very specific. It's not something anybody's going to pull out of a hat. And look, if anybody is out there that can give me this name, I'm anxious to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking about this. Like, I won't have explanation for it. Other than that, the best explanation would be that the Christian God gave them, or a God gave them that.
That's really cool. And of course, the name is Rufus. So.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So, man, listen, I got to go because my wife, next time she's going to open the door.
I heard pronto, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, and the only answer is yes. So I've got to go. It's been a super pleasure. More probably than not, this will be a 2-part. So sure. It's going to happen probably on Tuesday and Friday. But, I'll keep you posted when it happens. And I cannot begin to thank you enough because this was a blast. I hope it was
nice seeing you again. I was glad you reached out. And actually, it was funny because I think it wasn't too long before that I'd actually said to my wife that if we went to Italy, that I'd maybe want to drop by Fabio. So,
you know where? I live in Tuscany. I'm not bragging, but the area I live is pretty good.
Yeah, you're gonna see me at some point. We'll get over to Italy at some point.
Okay.
Just in the next few years here. So
have a good time.
And then I have a question for you after we kind of end the recording.
Yeah. Okay. So we end the recording. You go send your cabinets, and that's it. Cheers.
If I didn't care more than words can say, if I didn't